The great Frankish Empire shattered in 843, but the dream of a European empire lived on. For a time, Italy held the imperial crown, a piece of the Middle Frankish kingdom. But it crumbled fast, its power fading as stronger neighbors grabbed its lands. The West Franks also fought endless internal wars, nearly falling apart. And the East Franks faced their own unique struggles. Their state was built on 4 massive tribes: the Saxons, the Franks, called Franconians here, the Alemanni, now known as Swabians, and the Bavarians. The Thuringi were too small to sway the kingdom's politics. Nordgau, a borderland between Franconians and Bavarians, was shared by both tribes and faced the Slavs. These borderlands, or marches, protected the inner regions from attack. Lotharingia, meanwhile, was a constant battleground between East and West Frankish rulers. It changed hands often, barely part of the East Frankish kingdom for years. Among the 4 main tribes, leaders called dukes, originally military chiefs, quickly took sole control. Over time, duke became a top aristocratic title. Since their power came from their tribes, these territories became known as stem duchies. A famous tribal duke then was Otto of Saxony, founder of the Ottonian dynasty. With plenty of reasons for conflict, German dukes often sought compromise over war. This laid the groundwork for a key future German trait: federalism. This internal peace allowed King Charles III to keep all his father's lands. In 881, he also gained Italy. 3 years later, he inherited West Frankish and Burgundian lands, briefly reuniting the old empire. But the empire's parts had grown too far apart to stay one state. So, after Charles III died in 888, nobles from across the land split the empire back into separate kingdoms. Soon, Europe faced a new threat: the Hungarians. In 907, they conquered Great Moravia, clearing a path into the Frankish Empire. They began yearly raids, plundering across Europe and even reaching Spain. But these raids hit the East Franks hardest. In 911, Louis IV, the Child, died fighting the Hungarians. His death ended the local Carolingian line. Instead of a foreign Carolingian, local nobles chose their own leader, Duke Conrad of Franconia. Despite outside threats, he fought with his own dukes, sparking a long civil war. Just before dying in 918, seeing the kingdom's dire state, Duke Conrad made peace and passed the crown to his main rival, Duke Henry the Fowler of Saxony, from the Ottonian dynasty. Legend says King Conrad, respecting his rival's worth, called his choice fortune and noble intentions. Power then shifted from Franks to Saxons. The state truly became German, known as the Kingdom of Germany. Henry I, the Fowler, reformed the kingdom. Boosting royal power, he allied with the church for support. In 925, he officially added Lotharingia as the 5th duchy. To defend the east, Henry built a network of fortresses called burgs. In 929, he even campaigned into Prague. In 933, at the Battle of Riad, he successfully stopped a Hungarian invasion, halting their advance. The next year, Henry campaigned in Denmark, forcing peace and ending Viking raids there. Instead of dividing his kingdom among his sons, as was common, Henry the Fowler left everything to his eldest son, Otto. Otto I took the throne after his father died in 936. Right away, Otto faced rebellion from his brothers. During the 3-year civil war that followed, Thunkmar died, and Henry, after a defeat, secured forgiveness. 2 years later, Henry tried another coup, which failed again, but he was forgiven once more. Soon after, through a smart marriage alliance, Henry also gained the Duchy of Bavaria. Shortly after, Otto I named his son Ludolf, Duke of Swabia. One of Otto I's biggest wins was bringing the skilled commander Conrad the Red to his side. Conrad helped the German king win his battles against his brothers. As a reward, Otto I married Conrad to his daughter Lutgard and made him Duke of Lotharingia. by 950, Otto's family controlled almost all German lands. This consolidation let the German king finally focus on foreign policy. In 950, Otto I established a protectorate over Burgundy. The next year he invaded Italy, which was in civil war. Using the excuse of rescuing Queen Adelaide, kidnapped by King Berengar of Ivrea, Otto crossed the Alps and quickly took Pavia, forcing Berengar to flee. Otto then married Adelaide and declared himself King of Germany and Italy. Returning home, he appointed Conrad the Red to govern Italy. The Duke of Lotharingia quickly defeated Berengar's forces. However, to avoid a long war, Otto made peace with Berengar, letting him rule Italy under Otto's authority. Meanwhile, Duke Henry of Bavaria tried to stir trouble between King Otto, his son Ludolf, and his son-in-law, Conrad the Red. Events in Italy only worsened this. In 953, Ludolf and Conrad launched a campaign in Bavaria. Henry fled to his brother, King Otto, who saw the campaign as a rebellion. Germany was plunged into civil war for 2 years. However, Conrad didn't want war with the king and quickly reconciled with Otto, though he lost Lotharingia. In 954, Ludolf also reconciled with his father after a defeat. Taking advantage, Otto I seized the Friuli Duchy in Italy, which became the March of Verona. The war's outcome created an opportunity for the Hungarians. In 955, they invaded Germany, pillaging the land. But they were trapped in a siege at Augsburg, where defenders resolved to fight to the end. Otto I quickly seized this moment. Gathering his army, he marched against the Hungarians. In the Battle of Lechfeld, German forces were outnumbered. Yet Conrad the Red tricked the Hungarians into raiding the German camp, then struck from the rear. The Hungarians suffered a devastating defeat, ending their raids into Europe. The victory was so decisive that the soldiers on the field proclaimed Otto their emperor right then. Despite heavy German losses, including Duke Conrad the Red and Otto's brother, Duke Henry of Bavaria, the victory solidified Otto's power and marked a major shift in his reign. From the Lech River, Otto immediately turned his attention to the Slavs along the Elbe. Along the Rasha River, he defeated Slavic forces, adding lands beyond the Elbe to the German kingdom. At his peak, Otto was already hailed as Otto the Great. However, he still faced a challenge from Berengar in Italy. In 957, Berengar captured the March of Verona. Then, in 960, he attacked Otto's ally, the Pope, in Rome. In response, Otto launched a campaign into Italy. During this campaign, Otto not only took all of Berengar's territories, but was also crowned with the imperial crown in Rome, becoming the Holy Roman Emperor. Thus, the German kingdom became the Holy Roman Empire, though the term itself wouldn't be used until the 13th century. Otto was already called Otto the Great at the height of his power. But he still had to deal with Berengar in Italy. In 957, Berengar took control of the March of Verona. Then, in 960, he attacked the Pope, who was an ally of Otto, so Otto decided to launch a campaign into Italy. During this trip, Otto didn't just take all of Berengar's lands. He also received the imperial crown in Rome, becoming the Holy Roman Emperor. This event turned the German kingdom into the Holy Roman Empire, though the name Holy Roman Empire wasn't actually used until the 1200s. To secure his imperial title, Otto allied with the Byzantine Empire. The emperor in Constantinople was John Zimisces, who had taken power via a coup and was open to another emperor in Europe. He even married his niece Theophano to Otto the Great's son, Otto II, who became the new emperor in 973. Otto II tried to rule from Rome, but he spent most of his life traveling and campaigning. His wife, Theophano, managed politics while he was away. Meanwhile, the new Duke of Bavaria, Henry II the Quarrelsome, like his father, repeatedly tried to depose his brother from the throne. And just like his father, he failed each time but received forgiveness for his rebellions. The empire also faced unrest on its borders. In 973, the Western Franks tried to take Lotharingia, starting a war that lasted 7 years. The next year, 974, Otto II campaigned in Denmark, capturing Schleswig. In 977, he led 2 campaigns into Bohemia, where Henry II the Quarrelsome had settled after another failed rebellion. Because Henry escaped, Otto II divided Bavaria, which Henry had to govern. He created the Ostmark, which became Austria, and Carinthia, making it the 7th duchy of the empire. The German emperor also planned to annex southern Italy, areas with ongoing conflict between local Lombard principalities, Byzantine governors, and Arabs from Sicily. Otto II defeated the first 2 groups. However, in 982, he was defeated by the Arabs at the Battle of Stilo. Otto II lost all the lands he had conquered. The following year, he had to go north to quell a rebellion by the Slavic tribes. He failed, also losing the North Saxon March. Upon returning to Rome, the emperor died of malaria. His wife Theophano quickly made their young son Otto the third emperor and began ruling for him. However, Henry II the Quarrelsome, recently pardoned and back in control of Bavaria, made his presence felt again. In 984, he kidnapped young Otto III, claimed guardianship, and crowned himself King of Germany. But Theophano cleverly turned the German nobility against the Bavarian duke. Within a year, he returned the son and sought peace. Theophano then governed the empire from Rome, focusing her political agenda on religious matters, strengthening the empire internally, and promoting cultural development. Otto III took full control in 995 and continued his mother's policies. He succeeded in Christianizing Hungary and strengthened alliances with the Czechs and Poles, thus expanding the empire's cultural and political reach far to the east. However, not all Slavic peoples accepted Otto III's rule. The Slavic tribes, who had asserted their power as early as 983, gradually began reclaiming their lands along the Elbe River. It was only with help from the Poles and Czechs that Otto III managed to stop them by 997, though he never fully subdued them. Like his father, Otto III died of malaria in Italy. With no children, the crown passed to his nephew, the son of Duke Henry II, the Quarrelsome of Bavaria, who became Emperor Henry II. The new emperor annexed Czech lands, making it the 8th duchy. However, this started a long war with the Poles. The war was costly for both sides and ended with a peace treaty in 1018. In 1024, Emperor Henry II died without an heir. Conrad II of the Salian dynasty, a descendant of the famous military leader Conrad I the Red, was elected the new emperor. The new emperor tried to expand the empire's borders but suffered repeated defeats from the Poles and Hungarians. A small success was the annexation of the Kingdom of Areleti, which was already under the empire's influence. However, soon after, the Italians rebelled against Conrad II. It became clear that the empire could no longer expand, and internal problems were growing. Upon Conrad's death in 1039, his son succeeded him as the new emperor. Henry III proved to be a talented politician, unlike his father, who relied on military force. He preferred clever strategies. However, the young emperor also showed military talent. This was immediately recognized by Czech Duke Bretislaus I, who was pursuing an independent policy of annexing neighboring lands, ignoring imperial orders. In 1041, Henry III suddenly launched a campaign against Prague. The attack was so swift that the Czech Duke had no time to gather his forces and had to ask the emperor for forgiveness. Henry allowed Bretislaus to keep his title and lands, but to strengthen his control, Henry began resettling Germans in the Czech territories. This region in Germany was called Bohemia, named after an ancient Celtic tribe that once lived there. In the same year, 1041, the Hungarians attempted to take the Eastern March, but Emperor Henry III quickly assembled a large army and confronted them, defeating the Hungarian forces at the Battle of Menfo. The victory was so decisive that the Hungarians not only returned the captured lands, but also agreed to acknowledge Henry III's supremacy as emperor and pay him tribute. In Germany, this battle was compared to the victory at the Battle of Lechfeld, highlighting its importance and impact. The Holy Roman Empire reached its zenith of power. However, like all empires, it later entered a long period of decline and eventual collapse. This became a defining characteristic of the subsequent centuries of German history.